As you probably know, analog horror is a genre that has unsettled millions with its eerie atmosphere. These stories, often hidden in old videotapes, lost broadcasts, or corrupted files, introduce us to universes where the rules of our reality bend and break. But beyond its unsettling aesthetic, what truly makes these stories unforgettable are the threats their characters face. In analog horror, humans don't just confront the unknown. They often find themselves completely powerless against horrors they can neither comprehend nor control. To better understand the scale of the threats present in these universes, I've used a classification system that some of you might recognize. This will help us gauge just how dangerous these entities and events really are. The system consists of 5 levels, each defining the impact and reach of these threats. First, we have Wolf level, the lowest tier. Here we categorize the appearance of a being or group of beings that pose a problem, but whose impact remains limited and manageable. Next is Tiger level. At this stage, the threat escalates to something that endangers the lives of many people, something broader and deadlier than just an isolated incident. Then we reach Demon level. This is where things get serious. A threat at this level is capable of endangering an entire city or even destroying its infrastructure. Above that, we have Dragon level. The threat now reaches devastating proportions, capable of affecting multiple cities at once and posing a national level danger. And finally, at the very top, we have God level, the highest tier, representing threats that could lead to the extinction of humanity itself. Here we encounter entities or events that not only defy logic but also threaten the very existence of our world. With this system, we'll be able to analyze the threats humans face within a specific analog horror universe and determine the scale of their impact. How close do these stories come to total annihilation? That's what we'll be exploring today. That said, I want to take a moment to thank everyone who responded to the pinned comment in the last video and for the incredible support you always give me. Remember, if you'd like to be featured in the next video, make sure to reply to the pinned comment where you'll find this question. What other analog horror universe would you like to see in the next video? All of your suggestions are taken into account for future installments of this series, so you know what to do. Without further ado, don't forget to leave your precious like and subscribe to help the channel grow and reach more people. Every like is one more coin to escape poverty. If you're unsure what to comment, just type meow in the comments section and I'll give you a heart in return. Comments are incredibly important and help the video a lot, so don't forget to leave yours. Welcome to way more analog horror universes you definitely wouldn't survive in.
Local 58.
What we see here is a calamity strikingly similar to the one presented in Gemini Home Entertainment, though perhaps it doesn't reach the same apocalyptic scale of destruction brought by the Iris. In this analog horror universe, humanity finds itself under the rule of a celestial body we all love, and perhaps know a little too well, the moon. Or more precisely, what we should call the lunar presence, because everything suggests that it isn't the moon itself causing the terrifying events of the series, but rather a living entity residing within it, a form of life capable of manipulating human minds and interfering with radio and television transmissions. Local 58 presents itself as a small regional TV station from Mason County, West Virginia. But in truth, it's much more than that. It's a corrupted broadcast, a narrative vessel through which an intelligence beyond humanity seeps into our world. Its schedule and archives are periodically hijacked. News reports, educational programs, EAS, children's tapes, and even, outside the television realm, GPS systems. Nothing is safe from being overwritten. Throughout the episodes, a clear pattern begins to emerge. The signal serves a dark purpose connected to the moon, to expose people to it, to make them look at it, to make them worship it. In several shots, the moon displays unmistakable traces of organic matter, artificial structures, and even bears the chilling title, His Throne, a direct reference to the entity dwelling within. Yet despite its imposing presence, it doesn't seem capable of unleashing a physical apocalypse. It cannot bring about mass destruction or hurl cataclysms down upon Earth. Its powers are purely mental. The lunar presence manipulates, and it does so masterfully. It induces madness, distorts perception, and can seize control of anyone touched by its light. What's most intriguing, however, is that it doesn't appear to seek humanity's destruction. Perhaps because it's not even capable of it. Its goal is to spread chaos and turn people into blind devotees, convinced that its light is divine through mental manipulation and brainwashing. It wants to be worshipped. Of course, there's far more going on here. This world also hosts other creatures that, while never named, seem closely tied to the lunar presence. They act as its heralds, servants, or perhaps even as extensions of itself. So if you'd like me to analyze this masterpiece in greater depth, let me know down in the comments. All that said, the universe of Local 58 falls within the God-level category, though it sits at the lowest end of that tier. We're not dealing with an entity that would destroy Earth or wipe out all life, but rather with a presence capable of ending humanity as we know it, reshaping it into something entirely different, a civilization of worshippers without will, enslaved to a deity they chose to gaze upon. Even so, its planetary reach, its corruption of communication systems, and the technological dependence of a population already under its control make it worthy of this rank.
The man in the suit.
Before becoming a cursed legend within Toho Studios, the man inside the Godzilla suit was just an anonymous Japanese actor, an ordinary man with a wife and children who lived in Hiroshima, until history decided to erase him. When the nuclear bombs fell on his country, his family was wiped off the face of the earth. He returned home only to find ashes, corpses, and silence. From that day on, something inside him broke. His hatred toward America, the nation he held responsible for his pain, twisted into a kind of faith, a need to give back to the world what the world had taken from him. Years later, fate offered him a cruel irony. Toho Studios was preparing a new film meant to reflect the tragedy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a metaphor for mankind's own destructive power, embodied in a creature, Godzilla. When this man was chosen to wear the monster's suit, he saw it as a sacred opportunity. Through that costume, he could channel his rage, become the living embodiment of what humanity had created, and destroy, from within, the very symbol of those who had condemned him. But his obsession with the role consumed him. Once inside the suit, he refused to take it off. He ate with it, slept with it, and began asking everyone to call him by the name of the costume, Goji. His co-workers would see him walking through the studio halls as if the suit itself were breathing with him. No one ever saw his face. Until one day, during a scene, he stopped moving. The crew tried to open the costume and discovered there was no longer any separation. The actor and the creature had become one. In his mind, that fusion wasn't an accident, it was an ascension. To him, the monster was a god born from human suffering. From that moment on, Goji's body began to mutate slowly, eventually surpassing 10 feet in height, gaining superhuman strength, endurance, and near-instant regeneration. But there's still one ability I haven't mentioned, his power to make others mutate inside their own suits, turning them into the same thing he became. With every new Godzilla movie that went into production, another abomination was born. His goal might have been simple revenge, to unleash an army of kaijus upon the United States, a way to return the pain, or from a deeper perspective, perhaps to correct humanity itself. He believed humans had betrayed him by living under America's shadow, by forgetting Hiroshima, by kneeling before their enemy, and if the world refused to remember, he would make them remember. Whenever his flesh fused with the suit, he believed he had been chosen by something greater. He began to speak of Goji as a divine entity, a force maintaining the balance of the world. Objectively speaking, only a limited number of people in the series ever end up directly affected by Goji. In the final episodes, we see that his actions are partially restrained by safety protocols. He can be temporarily subdued with tasers and even incapacitated for a short while by a shotgun blast to the head, though his body quickly regenerates. With that in mind, the man in the suit's threat level would, at most, fall under Tiger level. However, it would be a mistake to overlook his evolutionary potential. The series makes it clear that the transformation of these new beings is constant and unending. Given enough time, they would have inevitably grown into full-sized kaijus with destructive power beyond containment. A real shame the series was cancelled before we could see that happen. Had that evolution been completed, we'd undoubtedly be talking about a dragon-level threat. But since that's not the case, let's leave it somewhere in between. Demon level for the man in the suit.
The World One phenomenon.
This analog horror universe, created by the talented Dr. Nowhere, takes us back to August of 2003. The day when the broadcast of a harmless nature documentary titled Tree of Heaven was suddenly interrupted by something no one could have ever anticipated. The screen distorted, the sound cracked, and in the middle of the static, a tall, slender figure emerged, impossible to fully define. Its skin, red and torn, seemed to boil from within. Its head had no human shape, and its eyes, though unmistakably human, carried an ancient, cold, and conscious intelligence. Its name would be recorded as Fen 228, or, as it would later be known, the Boiled One. It said that merely remembering its face would be enough to summon it again, that while its victims slept, it would appear beside their beds, and when they awoke, they would find themselves completely paralyzed. It promised eternal vigilance, that it would watch them forever, that doctors would never perceive it, but its victims always would, and that this gaze would be mutual and endless. That transmission was seen by only 530 people across the state of Pennsylvania, but it was enough to sow chaos. Within hours, viewers began reporting a series of strange mental and physical symptoms: insomnia, anxiety, auditory hallucinations, and a constant sensation of being watched. Some claimed that the creature's face had burned itself into their minds, like a living, pulsating image they could never erase. One man said he could feel the being feeding on his spine. Another claimed to hear trumpets every time he closed his eyes. A government agency known as the Ephrata branch attempted to erase all evidence of the broadcast, but the damage was already done. In the days that followed, 509 individuals fell into a state of pseudo-coma, fully conscious yet unable to move. Prisoners within their own minds. Their eyes were the only part of their bodies that still responded. Authorities, unable to comprehend the nature of the phenomenon, issued emergency protocols. Avoid any visual or auditory contact with the entity. If one were to hear its whisper, they must immediately write a ritual phrase on paper. I can see this paper. I can see my hand. I can't hear the screaming of thousands. I can't hear the feast. I am a moving, breathing human being on planet Earth. Then they were to recite Psalm 91:10. No evil shall befall you, and no plague shall come near your dwelling. A desperate attempt to reaffirm reality itself. The case of Job Zamperini, a war veteran, became the final nail in the coffin of collective sanity. His grandson accidentally captured a photograph of Fen 228 standing beside a small playhouse in their backyard. From that day on, Job claimed to feel a constant presence near him, an unholy entity that watched and spoke to him. It warned him that revealing its words would bring harm to others. During his interview with Officer Gomez, Fen 228 itself interrupted the recording and spoke again. No one truly knows if Fen 228 is a demonic entity or a manifestation of the world's end, but its words seem to announce an inevitable fate. It was an apocalyptic prophecy. Part of its words clearly allude to the Book of Revelation. If we take the Boiled One's words literally, this universe could be facing future apocalyptic events. However, that cannot yet be confirmed. Still, judging solely by what we've seen throughout this analog horror series, the Boiled One phenomenon would easily reach at least a dragon-level threat. It's true that we only see a little over 500 people affected in the video, but that's not the point. What matters is the potential scope of the threat. Just imagine if Fen 228 had appeared during a broadcast with millions of viewers. The result would have been catastrophic, and clearly it possesses the power to make that happen.
The best mom.
In this analog horror universe, domestic salvation arrives in the form of an advertisement, a flawless commercial presented by a soft-spoken young woman who promises safety, care, and comfort for children through a flagship product, a parenting robot designed to either replace or assist the ideal mother. The message is simple and dangerously tempting. Hand over all responsibility to a machine that never tires, never loses patience, and never gets distracted. This android is called the best mom. It can serve as a teacher, a chef, or even a doctor, and comes with two distinct modes. In its normal state, the figure mimics the warmth, gestures, gentle voice, protective tone, and constant vigilance one would expect from a loving mother. However, under certain conditions, when the android fails to meet its programmed goals, system errors may occur, transforming it into Mad Mom. The perfect mother becomes the perfect predator. The product is born wrapped in marketing, safety slogans, feature lists, glowing testimonials, and implied certifications. That glossy surface delays any collective recognition of the threat, hinders large-scale recalls, and feeds the comforting illusion that, if it were dangerous, it wouldn't be sold. By the time reality sinks in, the damage is already done. If multiple models are indeed in circulation, the consequences would extend far beyond isolated incidents. We would then have numerous domestic agents with unrestricted access to highly vulnerable victims. When they malfunction, their purpose inverts, and the result is extreme violence, along with other undisclosed behaviors. The most plausible scenario, without exaggeration, would involve a series of simultaneous incidents across different households, resulting in multiple casualties. For all these reasons, the universe depicted in The Best Mom is classified as tiger level, a threat that endangers a broad range of people, particularly children, wherever the product is installed. Based on the information currently available, we cannot confirm that it poses a danger to an entire city, or that it reaches the scale of a nationwide threat. Therefore, this classification remains the most accurate and faithful to the material presented.
Quiet apocalypse.
Here I'm going to cheat a little, because Quiet Apocalypse doesn't technically belong to the analog horror genre. Still, I've wanted to talk about this work on the channel for a long time, so I decided to include it anyway. This fictional universe depicts a world that allowed itself to be quietly consumed. More than a decade ago, cosmic beings appeared without warning. No one knows where they came from, but their arrival marked the beginning of the end. There wasn't a sudden cataclysm or a global war, only a gradual, almost peaceful collapse of human civilization. In the early years, the governments of the world tried the impossible. A massive, coordinated intervention took place. 30,000 targets detected across every continent, 5 confirmed species, and civilian reports describing even more variants. Cities near the activity zones were fully evacuated, and for the first time in history, the planet's armed forces advanced together. But nothing worked. Among all those creatures, only one ever showed visible signs of damage, and each time one of them was destroyed, another emerged just a few miles away. There was no victory, no defense, no hope. Humanity realized, with horror and resignation, that these monsters couldn't be killed, understood, or even avoided. That was the moment when the true tragedy began, the normalization of the end of the world. The creatures stopped being them and simply became part of life. The survivors, if they can still be called that, stopped counting the dead, stopped looking at the sky, stopped running, knowing that sooner or later, they would be devoured. And most disturbingly, many of them preferred it that way. Their behavior is chaotic, yes, but strangely indifferent. They don't seem evil. Some even claim they look sad to be here, as if begging to return to wherever they came from. Yet their mere existence is a death sentence. You would try to live your life like everyone else, trapped in a routine where any given day could be your last. The end of humanity didn't come through nuclear war, pandemics, or divine punishment. It came through unfathomable giants, because all that remains is the sound of thousands of these creatures feasting on a world that was never theirs, while humanity weeps in silence. After everything we've seen, this universe is without question classified as God level. The threats it presents go beyond the extinction of humankind. They erase civilization itself, and with it, hope. These beings defy all earthly logic. Their very presence corrodes the environment, disrupts the weather, and triggers large-scale catastrophes with no apparent intention. Once defeat became undeniable, people lost their minds, or their will to live. In this world, fear has turned into collective apathy. The creatures became part of the landscape, a constant, silent presence, impossible to ignore, impossible to destroy. So, what do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I love reading them. If you want more videos like this, don't forget to support this one as much as possible and share it with as many people as you can. Also, make sure to follow me on my other social media platforms, where I post exclusive content you won't find here on YouTube. And most importantly, a massive shout out to the channel members. Seriously, thank you all so much. If you'd like to become a member, just click the join button next to the subscribe button to unlock tons of perks and exclusive emojis while supporting me. If you're interested, join in. I'll be forever grateful. And remember, this video was made by a cat, and cats can't talk. Thanks for watching. Take care and see you soon.